From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Jordan Evans. Cronkite News is dedicated to covering the borderlands of Arizona. Tonight, a look at some of our top coverage on cross-border relations, immigration policy, and the intersection of different cultures in our state.
A Phoenix artist has a contemporary sound, but is using an ancient instrument.
Sammy Giebers has more on a local indigenous artist and his take on the Native American flute.
Randy Kemp admits that when he plays the Native American flute, it doesn't always have that traditional sound.
I understand some people don't even like the way I'm playing the flute music now because it's more of that contemporary, fast-paced, very like, what was that? 6, 7, 8 flutes that I have to keep in rotation.
He's self-taught and uses the contemporary sound of this ancient instrument in his group's latest album. His CD is now nominated for a Native American Music Award, but not before its release was put on hold.
I actually flatlined. In 2016, I had a heart attack.
Kemp's daughter, Raquel, remembers those times all too well.
There was just so much stuff that was unfinished, and I think maybe that's what, that's probably, why he pulled through too. Is the CD is, one of the things that he needed to do.
Kemp often alludes to issues natives face today in his music. And another problem, he says that he sees less and less people picking up the Native American flute.
It's thinning out. So I don't know what's happening, if it's because of the time involved that it takes to learn or having access to some of these flutes.
But he hopes that this ancient instrument that has been a part of history for thousands of years will continue to play a role today. In Phoenix, Sammy Giebers, Cronkite News.
Kemp's group Artificial Red is nominated for Best New or Debut Duo or Group of the Year for the Native American Music Awards for their work on their new CD, Res Radio.
As part of Hispanic Heritage Month, an ASU student organization held a first-of-its-kind discussion geared toward Latinx design students. Cronkite News reporter Edgardo Lozoya tells us why organizers say diversity within design and architecture does matter.
Latinx is a gender-neutral or non-binary alternative to Latino or Latina, creating a more inclusive identity to members of the Hispanic community. The panel, Designing While Being Latinx, hopes to bring that inclusion to students pursuing careers in architecture and design.
As students, we don't often get to see faces or hear voices that resemble, people that we've grown up around.
LASSO, the Latino Architecture Student Organization, wants to change just that. And one way they're pushing for more minorities to pursue degrees in design and architecture is through panels like this one, held inside the design building at ASU's Tempe campus.
It's more about knowing that there is somebody that is very close to them, that they could go and get advice, and they could be helped, and that they could follow their path.
Organizers hope discussions like these will help create unity, a stronger community, and a distinctive design culture among Latino architecture students and the school.
This meeting showed very normal professionals that are minorities and that made their way into the community in general.
Through having more of these types of conversations and dialogues, minority students can see that their ethnic background should not be something that holds them back in school and in the workforce. A 2015 study by the American Institute of Architects found that Latinos made up 16% of the U.S. population and only 3% were licensed architects. LASSO founding member Benjamin Lyons recognizes the challenges minority students can face, but he sees the solutions as well.
As any minority or woman, you already have a disadvantage when going into architecture. So I think it's spaces like this, presentations and student groups and really professors that are allies that can help push diversity within architecture.
There are people that open the doors already or open the pathways for them, and they now know that, and before they didn't.
LAFSO members say they'll continue to have more events and discussions like this one. The goal is to continue reaching out to minority groups, increasing the amount of diversity within the fields of design and architecture. In the Broadcast Center, Edgardo Lozoya, Cronkite News.
They were getting in-state tuition, but soon they won't. Earlier this year, the top court in Arizona struck down in-state tuition for DACA students. Cronkite News reporter Abdel Jimenez spoke with a few DACA recipients who are now fighting financially to finish school after the court's ruling.
Most DACA recipients that I spoke with say they fear they have to drop out of college because they simply cannot afford school. But a few that still attend college are doing whatever they can to pursue their dreams.
Yeah, I think I'll do it. You know, I believe in myself. And my family believes in me too.
Sarai Escobar Gomez has a dream to become a teacher. But those dreams hit a wall after the Arizona Supreme Court ruled in April 2018 that DACA recipients are not eligible to pay for in-state tuition. Now, the bills to attend college are racking up for students like Gomez.
So I had to cut my time, and it really bummed me out because I need like 3 more classes to get my associates, so it slowed me down.
Gomez attends one of the Maricopa community colleges, where tuition for this year is $326 per credit for non-residents, as opposed to $85 per credit for residents. Those DACA recipients who can't afford to pay the higher rate are turning to trade schools for other options.
I have been trying to save up, and I've been coming up with little plans to try to see if it can help me maybe boost it a little faster. I wanted to go to get a real estate license so I can start, doing that on the side.
For most, the problem boils down to money. Karina Ruiz, executive director of the Arizona DREAM Act Coalition, says despite the challenges, DACA recipients shouldn't stop pursuing their education.
We have had the conversation with the students about, you have to expand your horizons. You have to really look into going to other states. Like we know St. Mary's in Texas is giving scholarships for students that are undocumented.
For now, Gomez says she will continue to fight to get a college education, even if it takes one class at a time.
The good thing is my mom is a single mother, so we just kind of join what we earn together, and that's how we make it, yeah.
The DACA program hangs in the balance of the courts. Last month, a Texas judge declined to stop the program, handing a victory for more than 26,000 active DACA recipients in Arizona. That's according to the most recent data from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. At ASU, there are currently 274 DACA students. Abdel Jimenez, Cronkite News.
In Washington, the president's proposal to use troops to close the border drew a range of reactions today, from the unfavorable to the impractical. Washington Bureau reporter Ian Solomon has the latest.
If this caravan of migrants makes it to the U.S.-Mexico border, they may face detention or National Guardsmen, or, if President Trump has his way, the U.S. military. In early morning tweets, the president threatened to stop U.S. aid to the Central American countries the migrants are coming from, adding that if he had to, he would call up the U.S. military and close our southern border. That was news to the Pentagon, which said in a statement today that the Department of Defense has not been asked to provide additional support beyond National Guard troops already on the border. Congressman Raul Grijalva says additional military support isn't the answer anyway. He said in a statement that deploying military to the border is costly, ineffective, and does nothing to strengthen border security. Sending the military to the border did not work in April, and it will not work this time around. Immigration lawyer Eduardo Beckett says there is no policy to deter immigrants, considering what their alternatives are back home.
If you're from El Salvador and you know that you're going to be executed, or you're going to be tortured, or they're going to behead you, you're not going to care. You're not going to think about, oh, I'm going to be detained. You don't care. You're going to come. So the Trump administration's policies are never going to work.
In Washington, Ian Solomon, Cronkite News.
Many of the people we talked to in Washington saw the border threat as more of a political than a policy statement, saying the president is playing to his base. There has been no official response from the White House to the president's tweet.
Maryville is a historic Valley neighborhood, but some of its areas have fallen on tough economic times. Cronkite News reporter Edgardo Lozoya attended a job fair that offered this local community the chance for a better future.
A group of local businesses got together offering thousands of available positions to those looking for a way to provide for themselves and their families.
Nerves, along with a bit of anxiety and a lot of smiles, mixed together inside the Maryville Legends Event Center as hundreds of residents came with one goal in mind: finding a job. Among the crowd, Shamilar Mixon and her mother, Krishania.
I want to become a police officer, so I'm going to apply, and hopefully I'll pass.
Organized by several local organizations, including Chicanos por la Causa, 60 employers offered 5,000 jobs, providing not only employment, but the possibility of a better future.
And what we're really looking to do is not just offer people jobs, but career pathways into something that's sustainable, something they're passionate about, and something that can sustain them and their families.
And that's something this particular area in the valley needs. According to a 2017 analysis by the Census Reporter, the city of Maryville currently has over 130,000 residents, with Hispanics making up 82% of the population, followed by Anglos and African Americans. Out of the 64% that is eligible to work, almost 5% is still unemployed. Shalimar and her mother see opportunities like this job fair not only as a path to a job, but also a way for neighbors to help each other out.
I feel like it's more of the people in the community itself, that brings everyone together for jobs.
Organizers say their goal is to help community members who may be going through tough times see that a future career is possible, no matter their situation.
Sometimes you might feel like, oh, I'm not qualified for a job, or I'm not qualified for an opportunity that was given to me, but there's people out there who will help you get qualified for that experience.
Not just job programs, but also training, schooling, and all the different services that are available that a lot of people in Maryville just don't know they have access to.
Never give up, no matter what.
And while the president is talking tough on border security, immigration authorities in Arizona have been releasing hundreds of undocumented migrants in different cities across the state.
Cronkite News reporter Abdel Jimenez was there over the weekend as one group arrived in Gilbert.
I spoke with local faith leaders who have been helping out migrant families since they started arriving. Many of these families are risking their lives coming to the United States, despite the many challenges they face getting here. Volunteers cheered as hundreds of undocumented immigrants got off several buses in this church parking lot Sunday. But the warm welcome doesn't change the reality these migrants are now facing. Even small children forced to wear tracking ankle monitors. Elvis is from Guatemala and crossed into the U.S. with his 9-year-old son.
We came in a van, which didn't have a lot of air. It was also very hot. I feared that my son was going to suffocate.
Like Elvis, all of these migrants arrived in the United States seeking asylum. They say after escaping poverty and violence back home. Immigration and Custom Enforcement has been releasing waves of them in recent weeks, many times under the care of organizations like the Arizona Korean Seventh-day Adventist Church in Gilbert. Here, the migrants get donated clothing, food, and a place to stay until they continue their journey. All of it is run by volunteers who say they're overwhelmed.
We need more help. We need more churches that can open the door, and so we can bring more people there. We have doctors here, we have nurses here. Right now, we're working with about 10 churches, and we already receive about 500 people. 500 people. Children with parents.
One of those is Elvis, who from Arizona is now heading to New Jersey. He says looking for a better future for his family.
We are poor people. We don't have our own home. There aren't a lot of job opportunities, and we don't have money to open up a business. I came here to find a dream in order to go back to my home country with sufficient funds to open up my own business.
The number of arrests of undocumented immigrants, including children, has reached the highest point of the Trump presidency despite its zero-tolerance policy. Reporter Alexa Avila is tracking the latest.
Despite repeated efforts by the federal government to stop it, the number of immigrants attempting to cross through the southern Arizona border continues to grow day by day. Arizona is one of the epicenters of the immigration issue, so I went to Douglas, asking those who live at the border what they think.
You don't feel like you're safe.
Josefina Sanchez came to the United States seeking asylum 25 years ago and has lived in the southern Arizona border city of Douglas for 23. Recently, she says she feels like a criminal in her own town.
Because they see like somebody look a little bit different or dark skin or something, you know, they just follow and stop to question.
Why are we not going to the core of that issue?
Douglas Mayor Robert Uribe says the Trump administration doesn't understand that building a wall or separating families is proving to not deter people from wanting to flee desperate circumstances in their home countries.
The majority of the folks crossing the U.S. currently are folks from Central America. So I raised the question, why isn't our country collaborating in an effective way to come together and figure out a comprehensive immigration policy?
Recent data released by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol shows the number of undocumented immigrants crossing into the United States has increased 38% just in the last month, despite the many efforts to stop it. Dan Stein, president of the Federation of Immigration Reform, a Washington, D.C.-based group that seeks to reduce both legal and undocumented immigration in the U.S., says the United States government has every right to detain and prosecute undocumented immigrants.
Right. If the zero-tolerance policy had been able to play out as intended, 6 months from now, you'd be almost no one trying to cross the border.
However, Eric Salazar, Director of Financial Empowerment for Unidos U.S., says recent change in immigration policies do more harm than good.
We actually need the people that are coming here, right? We need the workforce. So it's a little short-sighted for them to see it as just you know, all the bad people coming in or whatever the case may be.
Cronkite News repeatedly has reached out to U.S. Customs and Border Patrol for comment, but so far they have denied our requests for an interview. Data released yesterday by the Trump administration shows the number of people apprehended at the Arizona southern border jumped more than 50% just within the past year. In the broadcast center, Alexa Avila, Cronkite News.
Meanwhile, authorities from both sides of the border are working toward a permanent solution for the burst pipeline that spilled thousands of gallons of raw sewage in Naco. Cronkite News reporter Brittany Watson also made her way down to the southern border to see what exactly is going on.
The burst pipeline is now under control, but not completely fixed. The leak has forced authorities from the U.S. and Mexico to come together and try to repair it, despite the many challenges. This line shows just how high the spilled sewage had piled into this storm drain. Sewage that flowed in for weeks from Naco, Sonora, and although now stopped, is still causing concern for nearby residents.
I would hate to see the young people affected by this. If they become infected with type A or B hepatitis, it could plague them the rest of their lives.
Tests done by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality show the east and west sewage flow tested positive for E. coli and lead. However, additional testing done by health officials highlighted that the drinking water is safe to consume.
We don't have any reason to believe that there is any industrial discharge going into this system or any hazardous waste being disposed in this system.
Weeks ago, there was a steady flow of sewage making its way across the border fence onto the U.S. side. As you can see now, it is completely dry. There still is a ton of garbage, but with repair efforts being made on the Mexico side, the flow has stopped. Many of the residents in Naco, Sonora didn't even know there was a toxic sewage problem happening just a few yards away from their homes.
There was no smell. It was just the spillage, but no smell, even when it was hot in the evenings. Honestly, it didn't affect us at all.
The people in Mexico don't realize we have an international problem that can cause a binational problem to escalate, including closing down the border. It can happen if we don't fix it.
Recent pipeline repairs have included cleaning the lagoons and the removal of debris, but it all comes at a cost, with the North American Development Bank, based in San Antonio, having to fund the project.
All the infrastructure costs money. And so it's just a matter of us getting to that point of helping them with grants and loans so they can fully repair their system.
The problem is controlled but not fixed. If we don't continue with maintenance and clean the pipes, it could become a greater issue. I think we shouldn't drop our guard and continue solving the problem.
There's still a lot of work to be done. Repairs and replacements can take up until March of 2019. From the Broadcast Center, Brittany Watson, Cronkite News.
A Tucson program is helping low-income mothers come out of poverty. Cronkite News reporter Abdel Jimenez takes us to meet some of the moms and kids in this life-changing program.
Mothers in Arizona Moving Ahead, or MAMA as it is known, is a program supported by the Pima County government that not only provides resources like legal, educational, and financial assistance, but it's also a place that provides a much-needed support system for moms in similar situations. There was a time in Alisa Bianca Ponte's life when she had 2 kids and didn't have enough money to keep the lights on at her apartment or pay for car insurance.
When you're growing up in poverty or you're living in poverty and you're having to deal with these issues, car insurance is a luxury.
A luxury Aponte simply couldn't afford. That is, until she was introduced to Mothers in Action Moving Ahead, MAMA, a Tucson-based program which helps mothers out of poverty by providing resources and support.
A program that really came out of the Ending Poverty Now initiative to look at, could we design something that could really help families in the community and working with community organizations to help people move out of poverty.
The program is open to all and targets families considered working poor, meaning those who fall below the poverty line. According to the Labor Bureau statistics, women of color continue to be twice as likely to be among these kinds of workers compared to white and Asian women. So far, the program has helped dozens of families.
It sort of starts with an intensive 50 hours, and that can be 8 to 16 weeks. And then it goes into the circles of care, which are once a month.
More than 80 women graduated from the MAMA program, and at the event, the moms created posters like this one showing their goals. For most of them, that's being a role model to their kids.
If you are in a stage in your life that you feel like you want to make a change, like that is that thought there is a seed, like plant it.
Aside from the financial resources they get here, most of the moms say it's the connections they make with other moms what makes them even more determined to leave the cycle of poverty behind.
We all go around and give a hand to the mom next to us. Eventually, you find a hand on your back saying you can do it.
A recently leaked memo showed the Trump administration making efforts to redefine gender, and it has sparked action from the Valley's transgender community. Cronkite News reporter Edgardo Lozoya was at a rally where members denounced what they classified as discrimination on behalf of the federal government.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
Members of the Arizona transgender community and supporters came together at the state capitol, uniting as one.
I grew up in a house that my gender was not seen.
The rally, put together by Trans Spectrum of Arizona, came after a leaked memo obtained by the New York Times shows the Trump administration is considering defining gender as a biological immutable condition determined by genitalia at birth. Something many within the transgender community say is the most drastic move made by the current government, rolling back the protections they have under federal civil rights law.
First thing I felt was this just hurt and fear, this deep abiding fear of what tomorrow could be. What happens if this passes? What is that going to do to my life?
This new definition would eliminate recognition for almost 1.5 million Americans who identify themselves, surgically or otherwise, as a gender other than the one they were born into. This has sparked fear within the transgender community, but they're channeling it into action.
The main purpose of this event not only was to unite our community at a time when we're being attacked, but to encourage our community to participate in the electoral process and make sure that they vote on Tuesday, because that's how we fight back against policies that attack us as a community, is by voting, by getting involved in the political process, by holding these people in power accountable for their actions and their words.
Tuesday, there's an election going on, and we can get rid of some of those scraps and get progressives in there to be allies and be the champions that are so desperately needed.
Whoever or whatever this God is, this God does not make mistakes with who was created.
In Phoenix, Edgardo Lozoya, Cronkite News.
Latinos in Arizona were crucial voters in this past election, a growing demographic that will shape Arizona politics for years to come.
Cronkite News reporter Alexa Avila spoke with local Latino community leaders and advocates who say, while yesterday was a good start, their mission still has to continue.
The day after midterm elections, those who pushed for a higher young Latino voter turnout say their work isn't done.
We're going to continue to engage young people and underrepresented voters, whether it's on their campus or in their communities, and we are going to meet them where they are.
Initial reports seem to point to a potential record turnout at the ballots yesterday in Arizona. The question is, how many of those who voted fall within the coveted millennial Hispanic vote?
The youth vote is here to stay. And more than ever, we're starting to realize the power that our ballots hold as the largest voting bloc in Arizona and in this country.
Raquel Turan is the new representative-elect for District 30 in Phoenix after winning Tuesday's midterm election. A community organizer and advocate in the past with the organization Mi Familia Vota, Taryn is a part of a group building a political and civic movement over the last decade.
What I always tell people is that we have not seen the numbers that we want to see, but we've always seen steady growth. And what we saw last night is that they're becoming freaking voters.
During his concession speech last night, Democrat David Garcia, who is running for governor, specifically thanked many of the local Hispanic advocacy groups that supported his campaign and who pushed to get younger Hispanics to the polls.
I need to thank Lucha and Planned Parenthood, CWA, CASE, Mi Familia Vota, Chispa, Mi Gente Puente, and One Arizona for all of your work. Thank you very much.
But it wasn't enough to put a Democrat in the governor's office, at least not yet.
Progress doesn't happen overnight, and it's going to take very many more months of organizing, very many more months of educating young people to continue to set the culture of voting.
In Phoenix, Alexa Avila, Cronkite News.
In past years, youth voters have had low voter turnout, but this year it appears the youth stepped it up in the midterm election. Cronkite News reporter John Cardinelli talked with a couple of organizations that are working on promoting voting for current and future generations.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.